here's Brody Brazil.
It has been a few months since I introduced this brand new phone number for the voicemail line, 833-4Brody. And since then, I get so many calls, and I am so appreciative for that. Thank you very much for taking your time to try and contribute to the channel. I know I can't use every single call and message you leave, but I do want you to know I literally do listen to every single one. But on that note, how about the ones I don't use? Like, there's kind of three categories of voicemail calls. Number one are the instant yeses, the ones that I cannot wait to go make a video about because my brain was already there, or it's a new thought and I'm so excited about it. So that's kind of category number one. The instant yes, I'm going to make that into a video. There's also the other category of calls that for whatever reason, and sometimes it's a message that gets cut off, or it's bad audio quality, or it's just a topic that I just can't or won't get into here on this channel, or it just doesn't necessarily make sense. So there's kind of the instant no's, and no disrespect, but I just can't do anything with some of those calls. But then there is the middle ground. There's a lot of calls here which, how do I say this, maybe don't necessitate their own video. They were good thoughts, but they were quick thoughts, and they were ones that, like I said, I'm not necessarily going to instantly jump and make a video about. But that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to clear out the voicemails that are in the middle ground. I'm going to get to all the voicemails that do not get their own video, but they do get to be a part of this voicemail bonanza. So here we go.
Hi, Brody. This is Angel. Imagine this. A UFO flies over your house, opens up the latch, drops a big bag. Thud. The ship leaves. All of a sudden, you hear this big noise. You run outside, you see a big bag. You figure, You run to the bag, open the bag. You look inside, neatly stacked, $5 billion. You look up and you say, wow, I'm in the money.
Yeah.
Then you notice a note. You open the note.
Uh-oh.
You open it, and it says, Brody, you are in the money. On one condition.
Uh-oh.
You must build an NHL expansion team. Any city, any state.
Okay.
With that money, how would you go about building an NHL team? Good luck.
Angel, thank you for one of the most creative voicemails I think anybody's ever left me at 833-4Brody. Okay, you said $5 billion to start an NHL expansion franchise. How do I do it? Well, I think I have to divide the money. $1 billion probably goes to the expansion fee, although that number might be a little bit low. It might be closer to 1.5 or $2 billion by the time I'm ready to do this. So maybe I've already got my money out of order here, but maybe $2 billion to build the new arena. Will there be any help on that? Do I have any partners in on that? But if I have to build it all by myself, $2 billion for that, maybe I could split that money, $3 billion total for expansion fees and the arena. $1 billion for team expenses, like we got to start hiring people and we've got to start getting the payroll ready. And I also want to keep $1 billion for reserves in the future of running this franchise. Like, I'm trying to do this in a responsible fashion. I don't want to pump in all $5 billion at once. But I do think $5 billion is plenty enough to start a very successful NHL team and build a rink and all that stuff. So I know I'm kind of not getting to one of the main parts here. I'm going to choose San Diego, California. And I'm going to do that for a very specific reason. Huge market, big fan base. A lot of people in general, but a lot of sports fans, I think, do reside in San Diego. They are still minus their NFL team, which I think the Chargers should definitely still be there. We can see how they support the San Diego Padres. They're also currently without a winter sports team. There is no NBA team there, and I know the Lakers and Clippers are up the road by a certain drive to Los Angeles, but San Diego does not have a winter sport, and as I'm aware, San Diego does not have a world-class indoor sporting venue. So I want to bring the NHL to San Diego. I also want to build a community around this arena. I want to make it, kind of a year-round experience. You've heard this before, Arena District, Ballpark Village, all that stuff, but I do think it would thrive in San Diego. The concept here is an indoor arena with vicinity to downtown. Now, I don't know how possible that is. Petco Park lucked out back in the day where they built that right next to the Gaslamp District. They had space. It was not a very used neighborhood, so they were able to take advantage of that, move in, and then look what has surrounded it since. So that's my ambition. That's what I would do. I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about Atlanta or New Orleans or Kansas City or Houston or Indianapolis. I know all the other big potential NHL markets, but I'm kind of choosing the one that not a lot of people are ever even talking about right now. I think it could go well in San Diego. I think it would go well in San Diego. I'm a California guy. I'm a West Coast guy. So I'll be partial to that. And because, Angel, you had such a dream scenario, this is kind of my dream scenario. Okay, let's get to the second voicemail. By the way, I think we have 17 total to get to here. Let's go.
Hey, Brody, this is Kim from Chico. Thanks for what you do. I appreciate your take on all sports. I was born and raised in East Oakland and watched the lean years of A's baseball with Mike Norris, Matt Keogh, Mitchell Page, and the likes. What Fisher did still makes me want to kick, scream, and holler. But the question I have for you, although you have been neutral with your comments regarding this debacle, who do you turn to? Who do you go to express your sadness, anger, and frustration for your once beloved A's? Like to know your take. And again, thanks for what you do, brother.
Hey, Kim, thank you very much for the call. You're getting me a little emotional to kind of open up this wound a little bit again. And it's been more than a year since we've seen the last A's game in Oakland. We've just gone through a full baseball season. Now even the World Series is complete. They are done and gone to the city of Oakland. And so how do I survive? How do I handle all this? How do I process all this? Because I know that's what a lot of fans are all going through. In terms of the A's aftermath, look, some would argue that my commentary has not been very neutral. I think the one thing I wanted to do was stand up and be sensible, but also document what was going on here. And some people will say that I'm one way or the other. I mean, look, I think my main point was just to document what was happening here so that future generations could look back and say, well, here's somebody I trust. Here's somebody with an observation. Here's somebody who is just literally the average person, but with a voice and with a platform. I wanted to use that to just explain what was happening here and then let people decide how they should feel about this and what they should do about this. I talk with my small circles of friends and obviously my wife and my family. And some of that is healing. Some of that is also revealing. The more I talk about this, the more I kind of realize, wait, did that really just happen? Or how unbelievable is this? Or I can't believe that we're all experiencing this as we did a little bit more than a year and a half ago. So I think I do talk with people in my very small circles. But obviously, to your point, if you're saying that I've been neutral on it, no, I haven't gone here on the YouTube channel and ripped anybody or made it personal about anybody. A lot of times I'm just talking about the situation, but a lot of times the situation speaks for itself. I never felt like my coverage was ever going to impact or change the narrative or the story of what's going on. Again, I only wanted to document everything for the sake of history because I just think it was important to connect with fans, and a lot of media was not covering this. And then all of a sudden they started covering this, and then it went away and they're done covering this. That's why I'm not necessarily done until it's done. And I've probably tailed off a little bit on covering the day-to-day aspect of what the A's are doing, where they're at. Will this projected move actually be seen to completion? I've probably cut back a lot of my coverage of that, but I will be watching and tracking the plane literally until it lands. I do think it's important for fans to have each other, to stay in touch with each other, and to obviously keep dealing with all the emotions as they come, because this is like losing somebody, and it's the process of losing them, but also their absence after the fact, which I don't think a lot of people were prepared for enough. All right, on to the next call.
Hey, what's going on, Brody? My name is Barry. I'm calling from Las Vegas, Nevada. Been following your content for about 6 months now. Keep pumping out the great videos.
Thank you. I
appreciate how you I can't think of the word, but you cover all sports and you cover a lot of topics. You're like a chameleon, I guess. So thanks for all the content.
I'll take it.
Anyway, so I just watched one of your videos about sport expansion and which teams going to get to, or which leagues going to get to 40 first.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Las Vegas, we've been hearing whispers of the NBA coming for years. There hasn't been an official announcement. We've seen one failed arena project after another.
Right.
I guess they obviously could play in T-Mobile. T-Mobile's NBA ready.
Correct.
Or Mandalay Bay short term. Anyways, what do you think the holdup is on the announcement? And second, with the drop in tourism here, do you think that's going to affect our chance of getting the NBA here? And I think that's about it. Thanks again, man. We appreciate you. You rock, Brody.
Hey, Barry, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate you. And look, this has been a question for me too behind the scenes. What exactly is going on with the NBA and expansion? Because of all the leagues that are ready to add teams, or all the leagues that are talking about adding teams, I think the NHL's up there in terms of actually being ready and making a move. I think football could. They're probably slower to all of this. I don't think baseball is anywhere close. They were talking about it for a lot of years. They talked about Oakland and Tampa being resolved, and then they would figure it out and expand, and now they're up against a CBA and a work stoppage probably at the end of next season, which is going to throw a huge wrench into everything. But in terms of the NBA, they've got a lot of pieces in place, like the rights deals, which I'll talk about in a second. They've got a lot of money coming in. They're in a very good spot to expand. In fact, we pretty much know the two cities they're going to be in, Seattle and Las Vegas. Done. End of sentence. End of story. So what's the holdup? It's kind of like when somebody doesn't propose to their significant other and you're like, you two are going to be a couple. Like, why aren't you engaged yet? What's the holdup here? I do want to talk about Las Vegas specifically. There was the Oakview Group, which was the front runner to build an arena. They had a first site, then they had a second site that was south of the Strip, and they've done this before. They've got a lot of background and experience in building a building, and look what they've done across the country. But the Oakview Group and their endeavors right now have completely fallen apart because of something totally separate, some legal issues in Texas. I won't get too far into the weeds on that, but just understand that there was a group that could have paid for a team, built an arena, done all the hard work, and been ready for this. Now they kind of don't exist in that competition. So maybe the holdup is that they want to announce Seattle and Las Vegas, and maybe they've got the right pieces in Seattle, but they thought they had something in Las Vegas that just kind of fell apart. I'll be honest, I thought February of this year, so almost a year ago, basically 9 months ago, I thought we were lined up to get NBA expansion at the 2025 All-Star Game in San Francisco when the Warriors hosted it. That came and went. The rest of the season came and went. The offseason came and went. Opening night came and went. And we still haven't had that announcement. And again, I go back to the NBA. They've got the rights deals in place. $75 billion basically guaranteed for the next 11 years with Disney and Amazon and NBC. All that's lined up. The CBA's in decent shape. There's all these things that, again, just make sense to like, now is the time when you want to expand. And valuations have risen significantly. Why do I mention that? Because if the Celtics are worth $6 billion in their sale, I won't even talk about the Lakers, but if the Celtics are worth $6 billion, then I think expansion is at least about a $4 billion fee right now. 4 times 2, that's $8 billion additionally thrown into the league with that $75 billion. Who would say no to that spread across all the teams? This is a good time to strike while the iron's hot. And there's also the point that, I think you made this, if a team came to Las Vegas, like if we announced it right here, right now, November of 2025, they could be playing in Seattle and Las Vegas next basketball season. Why? How? Well, because they've got T-Mobile Arena where the Golden Knights play in Las Vegas, and Climate Pledge Arena up in Seattle is where the NBA team is going to play. Now, I get it, in Las Vegas, they probably want to build a separate building. Whoever buys the team is going to want to have their own venue. They'll have like 12 different sporting venues all of a sudden in Las Vegas. Tell me how that's going to go down the road. And I do agree that maybe there has been some concern about the slowdown in tourism and the economy of tourism in Las Vegas. I will say this. It's going to strike the NFL the least because they play the fewest amount of games there. The Golden Knights, I think, are in a different category because they're more organic. They were genuine to the party. The NBA will be just fine, too, because there's, 41 home dates? There are a significant amount, but not a ton, but 81 home dates for baseball. And in the middle of summer, one of the slowest tourist times anyway. I digress. I think tourism plays a little part of this, but I think the Oakview Group not being ready might be the biggest factor right now. So I think we all know it's not a matter of if, but only when. But man, that when is a huge question right now. Next one.
Hey, Brody. My name's Carl from Brisbane, Australia.
All right.
I really love your show on YouTube, especially the detail you go into about these teams having to move, unfortunately. I've got a question about possibly a work stoppage next year. The owners want a salary cap. The players just aren't going to budge on it.
Right.
And we know the reason is because the Dodgers and other teams are sort of skirting the luxury tax. Why are we having to go straight to we need a salary cap when it should just be something like, let's just take the annual average value of these contracts instead of these workarounds that they're doing? Anyway, hope you use this. Keep up the great work. Talk soon. Bye.
Carl, first off, I love the fact that you are in Australia. You are halfway across the world, different hemisphere, by the way, and you found me in my YouTube channel that I'm making literally here from the home studio. How tremendous is that? What amazing times we live in, by the way. So thank you very much for even connecting with me. That part alone I appreciate. As for your question, I think you're talking more about the deferral part of salary cap and why is deferral maybe not counted. And look, we can get into the weeds and the gray area here. I think the important thing people need to realize about the deferrals is that this money still is being set aside. To your point, though, it's just not being counted against the salary cap. I kind of want to talk about, though, what you brought up first and the whole situation regarding the salary cap and what the owners want versus what the players don't want. And actually, is this owners versus players, or is this owners versus owners and the players are bystanders and the players are going to suffer from missing a season out of all this? The owners are trying to control the trends of cost and payroll. You're right. And that's why they want to implement a salary cap. They're saying, hey, you know what? We can't run away with the cost of operating a baseball team. And if they're going to spend so much, then we're pressured to spend a lot more. We don't want that. We're going to hard cap you. No more soft cap, no more luxury tax. There's going to be a hard cap. That's what owners are going to fight for. But wait a second. If that's what owners want, isn't this owners versus owners? I know we're going to talk about a work stoppage and a lockout as in the owners are locking out the players, but it's almost like because owners can't see eye to eye on all this, and there's a bunch of other issues and TV rights deals and streaming and media stuff. Like there's a lot for owners to figure out, but this is more owners versus owners than it is owners versus players. Now, players oppose the salary cap, a hard cap, full stop, because it could limit players on the highest end of contracts and how much they make. I do think, though, if you were to implement a salary floor, and if the floor were about $150 million, if you said the cap, by the way, the cap and the floor should be close to each other, right? If you're just going to make a floor and it's just an arbitrary, really low number and the cap keeps going up, what you need is this separation to be a little bit more narrow. You've got to maybe keep the cap at a certain spot and push the floor up to a certain spot. But I believe, right, salary cap, I can't favor that necessarily, but if we do that, it's definitely got to come with a high floor. And if we're at least $150 million for teams that are spending close to $300 million, then you're talking about basically what, like 2x? Because right now it's 5x. The difference between the highest and lowest spending teams is about 5x. If we can make that about 2x, then we are balancing out the competition a little bit of Major League Baseball. Would you be limiting the highest earning players maybe with that salary cap? Yeah, yes, you would, and that's what players are going to fight against. But would you also be paying the lowest side of players a lot more because you had to raise the cap? I think that would also be the case. And that's why owners don't want a salary floor, right? So owners want a hard cap, don't want a floor. Players don't want a cap, probably don't want a floor because they know that it would come with a salary cap. I think the thing is here, when we think about consider a potential work stoppage and missing some or all of the 2027 season, I think at this point right here, right now, you pretty much have to prepare for the worst because the Dodgers just won the World Series back-to-back, and you tell me what's going to stop them from three-peating and being, the fifth team ever to three-peat? And all of that, all of their success, whether it's justified or not, is only going to fuel the conversation and the argument for a hard cap, right? Every team, if the Dodgers win the World Series in 2026 and then December the lockout begins, all the owners are going to say, see, we can't compete with them. How are we supposed to be that when they're doing what they're doing? They're spending like crazy. They're deferring like crazy. And yeah, maybe they'll have some new language with deferrals and the new CBA. Maybe that will be part of it, Carl. I do agree to your point, but I think the bigger thing is to figure out how do we make this a little bit more balanced in terms of competition? Because they're going to point the finger. Everybody else is going to say the Dodgers are at fault here. And the way it's lining up right now, they probably will win a third straight World Series. All right, next call.
Hey, Brody, it's Dave from Chicago. The Green Bay Packers are probably the most unique franchise in all of sports, how they play in a market that is much smaller and way different than any other franchise, and they have a whole culture in that town built around the team. And I think it would be cool if baseball, hockey, and basketball had their own version of the Green Bay Packers. Do you think you can make a video where you give your thoughts as to what cities or what very small cities might be good for the other sports to have their equivalent of the Green Bay Packers? Thanks, Brody.
Dave, I really appreciate that call. There's a lot of thought behind that. There's some creativity. I love what you want me to do. And I could name some of those city names that I think would be good. A lot of people would point out Austin, Texas. I just have to stop right here, though, and say, Dave, it's never going to happen again like another Green Bay Packers in any professional sports team situation. Leagues won't take that gamble. That happened so long ago and so organically that it almost can't ever happen like that again. And I'm saying this, like, you bring up a great point. I'm trying to counter that with the equally great point here that you're right. And there are a lot of special things about the Green Bay Packers, but it's unlikely to ever happen again. I should say intentionally. Like, there may be an accident situation of a team like in baseball where the Athletics move to Sacramento and then Las Vegas falls apart and then they're stuck in Sacramento. They get shipwrecked in Sacramento. So some of these things could happen, and Sacramento's not like a Green Bay situation. It's not that small. But I don't think that, you see what I'm saying? It could happen unintentionally, but never intentionally would a league go into a place that's that small, has such a small population and businesses and sponsors. They will not take that risk. The Packers are also community-owned, meaning that it's public shareholders that decide the fate and operations of the team, not the day-to-day stuff, like there's a whole football staff there. But this is one of, like, very few teams across the globe that is publicly owned by shareholders. Green Bay is the smallest NFL market. Green Bay is also the smallest major league market in North America. Not the smallest pro sports market, because there are other leagues and other teams, but in terms of baseball, basketball, football, and hockey, Green Bay is the smallest, and by a significant amount. They also have the oldest continuously operating stadium. Lambeau Field has been up and at it since 1957, and they have sold out every single game since 1960. And if you look at the size of the stadium in contrast to the population of Green Bay, Wisconsin, it's like 1 out of every 5 citizens is going to every single Packers game. Now, they're not all going. It's people from all across the region. But my point is, this is so unique. This is so unparalleled. I don't think, though, that any other league could ever replicate this, or would they ever even try to replicate this with an expansion team or by moving a team into a situation like this. All right, next voicemail.
Hey, Brody, this is Mondo from Maryland. So I have a actual serious question. So,
all right,
you mentioned, and I started following you about a month or so ago, and I'm really digging the content.
Thank you.
So you mentioned being a full-time journalist before and full-time sportscaster, and I know that you had a recent video saying how what you're doing now is a lot different. You're more opining about sports and less reporting on sports. But I did have a question about whether or not you used some of the ethics that you learned through journalism school and through the work that you've done. Do you still apply the ethics and the code of honor that you learned while coming up as a sportscaster and coming up as a journalist? Do you still apply that to even what you're doing now? All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the stuff. Keep it going. Have a great one.
All right, Mondo from Maryland, great call. Appreciate your thought and consideration and taking the time to call in. And I know your voicemail has been sitting with me for a very long time, so I hope you do get to hear me ultimately address this. I think you asked a rhetorical question. Like, you asked the question and you know the answer, which is absolutely. Who I am and my background and my experiences, they all shape kind of what I'm doing right here, right now on YouTube. I value opinions, but they have to be well formulated and thought out and responsible and sensible. And of course, ethics are a big part of what shape all of my opinions. When I was getting into the industry of media and broadcasting in the late 90s and early 2000s, clicks weren't a thing. TV shows were on TV channels and people were going to watch that. And if it was bad, there was really no way to have feedback, and TV ratings were always kind of arbitrary. So you were just pumping out a stream of information and maybe you get an email back. I mean, there was literally no social media when I started making television. Imagine that, content creators. And I feel like I've been a content creator since 1997 or so, or maybe even earlier than that. But the point is, it was so different back then because it was a one-way street. But clicks weren't a thing. So you didn't do something with the anticipation of, well, this not only has to be what I think is good, it has to be what somebody else thinks is good. And they'll click on and they'll like and they'll subscribe to this channel. And so, you know what? Part of me still operates in the old school fashion, which I think is totally different to how a lot of people in this new age are doing it, where their mindset and going into something is, I need clicks, I need views, I need likes, I need metrics. Me? I still make most videos and say, well, I think this might be good. And if I think it might be good, I hope you do too, but I don't know. I'm going to make this anyway because I want to make this, or I want to have this opinion, or I want to put this out there in the world. I do treat the microphone the same way I treat the internet, kind of with the same respect. I've always said about the microphone and the internet that if I wouldn't say something into this microphone on television, why would I do it on the internet? I think for a long time, there was the idea that, well, if you had a podcast, not everybody's going to listen to your podcast. Or if you're on social media, not everybody's going to look at every tweet you send out there. But I think we're finding that it's the opposite now, that you can say things on TV that people will miss, but man, they spread and they get shared on social media. So my point is, people thought, well, anything goes on the internet. You can say anything without any recourse, without any kickback. I've always treated the microphone as if everybody's listening every single time, and I wouldn't say it to somebody, I wouldn't say it on the internet if I also wouldn't say it straight to their face. And that's for an opinion or a perspective or anything like that. So I treat the internet with the same respect that I treated broadcasting for all those years. I also believe that, you know, there's a lot of people that are two different people. One when they're on camera or on their show or on their channel or on their podcast, and then in real life, they're totally different. I pride myself, and I hope this comes across, and I hope this is accurate, that me talking to you right now is pretty much me talking to you like as if we were to meet at a pub or a bar or a restaurant or a sporting game or whatever. Like, I'm trying to be as genuine as possible, but I do understand there's a lot of people, and going back to the clicks thing, they're one way for opinions and perspectives, and they get red hot about topics and hot take, here's this opinion. I just want you to click on it. Watch this, right? I don't know that I really want to do that or ever be that person. So maybe, again, as we're talking about opinions and ethics, maybe this is where I'm coming from on all of it. I do want to clarify, I never have really considered myself a journalist. I was more of a sports broadcaster. I think journalism is, you know, when you have the ability to be detached from the things you're covering, there are no ramifications, and that's never been the case for me. I've worked for a network, or I've worked for a team, or a combination of both. And so I have responsibilities. Like, I see why people think I'm a journalist. Again, I think journalists are covering politics and crime and war. Like, journalists are doing the hard, real dirty work out there in the world. I would never say that covering sports is that, right? So I do want to separate that. That being understood, I do apply some of those same ideals. I want to be transparent. I want to be held accountable. If I get something wrong, I probably want to let you know about it. So I see why people think I might be more like a journalist, but I've never actually considered myself to be that. I still think we need trendsetters for the next generation of content creation and of media production. I feel like back in the day, you know, you could look at a prominent broadcaster and say, well, they are kind of the standard, the gold standard. And I don't know that we've found a lot of gold standards for social media, sports commentary, and content creation in 2025 and beyond. So I still think that we need that. I'm not saying I'm that at all, but I would like to be considered that. I would like to aim myself as more towards that than anything else. All right, next voicemail.
Hi, I'm Steve from Tampa, Florida. big Minnesota Twins fan, and so since that season is over for me,
Yeah.
probably for a couple years, turned to football, and I had just an idea to maybe make Sundays more exciting.
All right.
You know how they start games, the early game, and then the middle of the afternoon game, and then you have your Sunday night game.
Yep.
I think they should split that up into a game starting at, say, 12:30 Eastern time.
Okay.
Another, maybe like 4 games then, and 4 games starting an hour and a half later,
All right.
and 3 or 4 games starting an hour and a half later after that, and then the Sunday night game. And that would give us more chances for more excitement, and maybe eliminate that kind of that dull period between the first 2 time periods of games where, you're the first quarter, whatever, the afternoon games, and the wife wants you to do some errands or something like that. This would give us 4 different times where we'd have exciting endings. I love your show. Just wanted to see what you thought. Thank you.
Steve from Tampa, thank you very much for the call. My facial expressions there, by the way, moments ago were me realizing what I think you're actually asking for here. You are asking for continuous NFL football games on a Sunday, like start to finish, so that there are no breaks and no gaps, so that you don't have to be a responsible husband? You're trying to get yourself out of chores and duties on a Sunday? Is that the real motivation here? Are you saying you want constant action, or are you saying you need an excuse to keep sitting down and to keep watching football? I'll put that aside, and I'll address what I think is an interesting conversation piece here. Should we cascade NFL kickoff times on Sunday to guarantee constant action? I do think that the way we do it right now, and I'll say these times in Eastern, but I love a 10 a.m. kickoff, 10-1, and then 5 o'clock for the Sunday night game. But it does make it easier to follow if we know that there are 3 kickoff times: morning out west, afternoon out west, and then Sunday night. Or afternoon, late afternoon, and evening if you're on the East Coast. It's just easier, and for somebody like me who's paying attention to my fantasy team, okay, I know that you can watch maybe all these games from, let's say, 10 to 1. And let's say I've got to do something else on a Sunday. I know that if I have those 2.5, 3 hours from 10 to 1, I can consume all these games and probably see a lot of starts and probably see a lot of finishes on, let's say, Red Zone. But if you start to cascade these times and segment these times and have them firing every 25, 35, 45 minutes, then you don't actually get to consume as much football, or at least a start to finish game. I think it's easier to follow and easier to remember when you have 3 Sunday kickoff times. That's just me. I think that's good marketing. I think that's actually good for the game. Halftimes and conclusions of games, again, are easier to follow when you're watching Red Zone. Hey, they're all wrapping up. All the morning games are wrapping up, and you kind of know that this is the time, this is crunch time of an early Sunday. I really, by the way, separately, I know you didn't ask about this, I really have enjoyed the early Europe games here in 2025. I think we've got a couple more to play. They've already played a few, but the fact that I can wake up and at, what are they starting at, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock? The fact that you can wake up on a Sunday, yes, that's when I'm waking up, and start watching football instantly. It's almost like a pre-game setup for the actual games. Look, I think the NFL is going to find that very marketable over the years, not just going to Europe and playing that game, but the fact that it has to work out time-wise where it starts super early on a Sunday. It just adds to the slate, and it adds to the offering of football on a Sunday that I think a lot of football fans really do enjoy. Okay, next voicemail.
Hey, Brody, how you doing? My name is CJ. I'm from Rockland, California.
All right.
Grew up in the Bay Area, East Bay, Danville, Livermore, that area. Actually, really good buddies when I went to high school with Casey Pratt.
Oh.
I know he's a friend of yours as well. So anyway, my question is, looking at the NHL, do you ever see the NHL and the KHL playing some sort of tournament, some sort of shortened season, something like that? So the KHL from Russia,
right,
and the NHL from, North America I think that could be a very exciting type of thing. Love to hear your thoughts on it. I'm really enjoying the YouTube videos and that you're a part of the Sharks again.
Awesome.
So go Sharks. Thank you, Brody. Talk to you again. Bye.
Awesome. Hey, CJ, I really appreciate the shout outs and the personal side of that as much as anything else. But thank you very much for the call and the opportunity to kind of talk about this conversation, discussion topic. An NHL-KHL crossover, the Continental Hockey League of Russia. I think we have to address the biggest and the first and the primary thing is that the political climate is just not going to allow for any of that for the foreseeable future. The NHL has ceased its memorandum of understanding with the KHL and its contact with the KHL and its contact with Russian professional hockey agents since March of 2022. It's been years now at this point where the NHL and the KHL, just for rightful reasons and obvious reasons, have no connection. They have no conversation. So instantly, I can unfortunately tell you that this is not going to happen tomorrow, nor necessarily anytime soon. Potentially, and hopefully someday, when the world is in a better place, I actually think it's a good idea. Like, on the surface, and again, considering that all things would be a lot better in the world climate and the political climate, I do think there are enough things lined up here that this would make a lot of fun. This would make a lot of sense. But the IIHF has its ban already extended through 2026 for Russian players and KHL players through the 2026 year, meaning that there's going to be no Olympic participation for Russian hockey players either. Now, the KHL has started to do some things to acclimate itself to be more like the NHL. They started making their rinks smaller, going from the international size to the North American size back in 2018. So most of their rinks are now similar to the NHL. The KHL has 23 teams. They're on a 68-game season that runs simultaneously to the NHL season. So September to April, could there be some crossover? Could there be? For example, we talk about how do you replace the NHL All-Star Game. We found that Four Nations people love, the Olympics every 4 years, people obviously love. What do you do with those other in-between years? Maybe down the road, there's some NHL-KHL crossover. Now, the NHL is a far superior league. There's no question about that. But the KHL is probably the next closest thing. It's higher than the American League, I think, the American Hockey League. I think. I mean, this is me, Brazil media pundit, offering this opinion here. But I think what you'd find is that the NHL teams would be far better than the KHL team. So maybe you do a KHL All-Star team against some of the NHL teams. Like, there's a lot of creative ways to do it. But again, all of this super interesting. All of this a great conversation for down the road. It's just unfortunate that we can't be at that point right here, right now, based on the climate of the world and Russia. All right, let's move on to the next voicemail. Here we go.
Hi, Brody. This is Ian from New Jersey. So years ago, the National Hockey League enacted rules to prevent bench-clearing brawls when two skaters start throwing punches.
Right.
I really wish the Major League Baseball would enact similar rules to avoid the silly brawls that occur when the batter and the pitcher get into a shouting match. And before you know it, 50 players vacate the dugouts and the bullpens, all acting and pretending to be tough guys.
Right.
I wonder if baseball tolerates this nonsense just to spice up the game. The shouting matches between umpires and managers also look to be intended for the cameras. So my question for you is, do you think Major League Baseball is complicit in all these theatrics? Thank you.
Ian, that is a call that I love because it's a thought I've never actually really put together or dove into of like, why in other sports do we not see like football sidelines totally clear? Because like in hockey, and to your point, there is a very strict penalty. If you are not on the ice when a fight takes place and you jump on the ice, if you leave the bench and go on the ice for a fight, that is an automatic 10-game suspension. And no player, superstar, role player, or player just trying to make it in the league, no player or their team can afford a 10-game automatic suspension. Like literally you step on the ice, you don't even throw a punch, done. You cannot go on the ice when there's a fight in the NHL. But obviously in the NHL, there's a fight maybe every other game for most teams. And it used to be every game and multiple times per game for teams. And that has cut back over the years and decades. But the NHL has made it very clear that if you're not on the ice while this altercation transpires, you are not welcome to be on the ice. To your point about benches clearing, like are we talking about baseball brawls? When was the last actual baseball brawl that you've seen? They do happen, but more often than not, what we're actually seeing and talking about are benches clearing. And a bunch of guys getting in each other's faces and maybe some holding, and everybody's holding each other. Hold me back. And then what? Benches clearing rarely ever guarantee any type of physical altercation. So to your point, why are we allowing an extra 10 guys from every bullpen in the right field, right center, and left center field run out onto the field, and everybody's halfway laid out there anyway? Why can't baseball just say, hey, if a fight happens on the field, if a batter is going to charge the mound, we don't want 50 other people, additional people, running out there on the field. It's hard enough for the 4 umpires to separate just the players alone on the field, let alone everybody that's also joining from the dugouts and bullpens. So yeah, this would be simple for baseball, and I don't understand why they don't make this a rule. This is an easy rule. I don't think anybody would really object to this. So to your point, are they trying to leave it in there because when benches clear, that's a pretty dramatic shot and people say, oh, look at this. Look what's about to happen. Like, it kicks up the excitement. Even if there's no fighting, benches clearing is inherently interesting. Is it really? Literally about that? Because I will tell you that the majority of players entering that field when the bench is clear, like, they don't even want to be there. They're just running out onto the field because they have to, because if they don't run out onto the field, they're looked at as selfish and why can't you be part of this? And wait, why didn't you run out there? Like, you are running out there to just support your team at that point. How dumb is that when you really think about it? Like I said, the altercation is between 2 individuals. Not everybody in the dugout even wants to be out there on the field. That's why they're off way in the background of all this stuff. They're not in the middle of the conflict. So why don't we just make it easy on everybody and say, hey, if there's a fight, do not leave the dugout. But I bet you Major League Baseball will never do that. Next voicemail.
Hey, Brody, this is Matt from Philadelphia. Unlike a previous caller, I love what you're doing on your channel.
Thank you.
Wanted to ask you about the best career advice you can give to an up-and-coming sports broadcaster. What's worked well for you in your career, and what have you learned over the years to make you a better sports broadcaster? All the best. Take care.
Matt, I could go on and on with this topic, and I appreciate you calling in and asking me. And I've tried over the years to impart the biggest and best things I know to those that I really care about and I could see are passionate about coming up. There's a lot of people that ask for advice, and I say, do you really want this, or are you just curious? But there's a lot of people who I see are really motivated. They will use this advice. They're hardworking, and I love giving advice to somebody that I can see is going to benefit from it and use it. And I don't give advice unless I actually think that there is some real life experience to it. I'm not just saying these things, I really do mean them. I follow the golden rule. This is number 1 that I would recommend to anybody. If you wouldn't say it, and I just talked about this in the video here earlier, if you wouldn't say it to somebody's face as a broadcaster, either you're critiquing of an opinion or a situation or evaluating a play or a performance, if you wouldn't say it with them in the room, then probably don't say it into a microphone. Because if you think that you're safe here and nobody's going to hear you talk about things that, and it's fine if you disagree, as long as it's kept professional, that's one thing. But the moment you start making it personal, oh, this player's not good because they don't work hard. Oh, really? And then their family members saw that clip and their relatives saw that clip. And then it gets back to them. And like, this happens so frequently in sports that people just say wild things when they're commentating on sports. I follow the golden rule. I'll be respectful about it. I'll be civil about it. I'll be sensible about my opinions. I'll also be strong about my opinions, but I don't think that you need to be so irresponsible to break the golden rule that you don't need to say something unless you would also say it to that person in person. I want to be curious and excited on the topics I'm covering. I think that comes across. I think people recognize that. Even answering these voicemails, like I've selected these ones that I want to respond to. So even in a case like this, people can see when you don't care what you're covering. So maybe you shouldn't be covering something you're not interested in. If you're not interested in it, right? And this is such an easy thought and piece of advice. If you're not interested in it, change what is interesting about it, like find something else about it, or don't be doing this. Pick something else to do. Here's another piece of advice. You're never as good or as bad as you thought you were. Like if I'm doing this voicemail video and I go back to watch it later or edit this later and I say, wow, that was the best thing I think I've ever done. And then I watch it and say, yeah, it's not though. I could have done this better or that better. Conversely, there's a lot of times where, I'm in the middle of a television show and the graphics got messed up or the wrong tape rolled or I said the wrong name. And I go back and I say, I do not want to watch this because it's going to look like a train wreck. And then I watch it and say, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I handled that pretty well. So over time, you're going to find that you were never as good as you thought you were, and you were never as bad as you thought you were. And on that note, what makes that more possible, that good and bad perspective, is repetition. Repetition is what gets you better. And that's why I suggest, like, if you're young and getting into this business and getting into this industry, if nobody's going to give you the opportunity to host a show or to be a reporter or to cover a team, here we are all on YouTube. Start your own channel. It doesn't have to look all like this. This is something that I've been in this career for a quarter century. That's why this looks like this. But if you present yourself well, you can have the opportunity, you can have a platform. It's going to start small. I get it. But create the opportunity. Give yourself repetition. Repetition is what's going to make you better. Repetition is what's going to make you ready for when the actual real opportunity comes your way. All right, next voicemail.
Hi, Brody. My name is Eduardo, and sometime before the end of this baseball season, I'd like you to answer this question.
Oops.
Did the Dodgers break baseball, or did baseball break the Dodgers?
Oh, boy.
Or to put it another way, did baseball cancel out the Dodgers spending spree? If in the offseason and during spring training, there was a lot of talk about the Dodgers unfairly buying themselves a return to the postseason, if maybe not altogether another World Series title. I even think MLB is using the Dodgers as Exhibit 8 for the adjustments they need to make to achieve more parity with salary cap and so on. Yet, especially in the last 2 months, we see many of the Dodgers' high-price acquisitions sputtering, if not altogether failing. And the Dodgers are barely hanging on to their division lead and are currently the third NL seed. Would love to hear your thoughts and analysis of all of this. Thank you.
Okay, so Eduardo, thank you so much for the call. And I want to state the obvious here because I think a lot of people just heard what you said. You said, I want you to make this video before the baseball season ends because you called in probably 2 months ago, mid to late baseball season, regular season, when the Dodgers were sputtering a little bit. And that's why you just referenced here, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. They may not come through. Well, within the last week, they won the World Series in a Game 7 situation. So, Eduardo, if you are a Dodger fan, congratulations to you. But you understand my point. I wanted to use this voicemail because it is dated, and look how you thought back then, and look what ultimately happened. Now, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I'll make a separate Dodger video on perspectives, but it turns out, if we're asking who broke what, the Dodgers and the Cream rose to the top for 2 straight years. One of the highest paid teams, had another chance, whether it was luck in a Game 7 situation or 6 and 7, or if it 6-7, or if it was pure talent and payroll that won out. Opportunity is what the Dodgers had because they paid a lot of money, and that opportunity brought success. That's what it is for the Dodgers. Spending does not equal winning a title. It does not guarantee winning a title. Spending equals more opportunity. It's a bigger window of opportunity, doesn't guarantee titles, but it's like buying raffle tickets, right? And so if I bought 100 raffle tickets because I paid $350 million and the Athletics spent $75 million, so that's just, 5 raffle tickets, I'm probably going to win the raffle more often than not, more than they are. Doesn't mean they can't. But I'm probably, with all the variables and all the player injuries and the fact that it takes a team and it's not just an individual sport, I'm probably going to win that raffle more than they do. The Dodgers repeat, which they've just done, and possible three-peat, like to your point earlier about how the Dodgers struggling would have changed the narrative and said, well, see, even these big spending teams, they don't always win. Well, now look where we're at. A back-to-back, a repeat, and now on the precipice of a three-peat. It's only going to make the case for a hard salary cap even stronger. I know I've talked about this a lot, but the closer we get to the Dodgers winning 3 World Series in a row and becoming just the 5th ever team to do that, yeah, you're going to have a lot of other major league owners saying, see, this is why we've got to control it. Equal attention, should be given to teams, and I've said this before, I'll say it one more time, that purposely don't spend, that purposely don't retain talent. If you think the Dodgers at the top are a problem, and if you think they've broken baseball, then I think we also need to consider the teams at the bottom and what they're doing. Are they also, to some degree, breaking baseball? All right, next voicemail. Here we go.
Hi, Brody. This is Trevor from Bluffton, Indiana. Hey, I love your show. I wish you had an hour-long live show. That'd be great.
Hey.
Anyway, my question is a simple one. If MLB expands, what do they do with the minor league teams? Does each expansion team have to come up with their own 4 more teams?
Yep.
And do cities have to bid on that? What is the process in expanding the minor leagues as well? And I look forward to an answer to that, and can't wait to hear it. Thanks.
All right.
Goodbye.
Hey, Trevor, I appreciate it. Great call, great topic. This is interesting for us to get into, and the answer, quite simply, is yes. 30 Major League Baseball teams equates to 120 minor league teams. It's simple math. 30 Major League teams, 4 levels. You've got AAA, AA, High A, and Single A baseball. So each team needs 4 corresponding minor league teams. That's just the way it works. And so, yes, you would be adding 8 teams, 8 pro baseball teams to smaller cities across North America. The Tampa Bay Rays, I want to use them as an example because, it has been a while. It has been since then that Major League Baseball expanded along with the Arizona Diamondbacks. But when the Tampa Bay Rays expanded, they were awarded the franchise in 1995, but they didn't start playing until 1998. So it's important you know that in 1996, they began their minor league system, literally right away. And that would be the case, I do believe, for any expansion team. And by the way, Major League Baseball expansion, in my view, is a bit far off right now. I don't think we're anywhere close to that. I think the conversation is going to exist, but the reality of it is just not going to be the case until this new collective bargaining agreement is sorted out. And even that might take an additional year of not playing baseball or even having a partial season. And then it might take time after that to finally get around to expansion, to let all the wounds heal. So bottom line is, as soon as a Major League Baseball team or teams are announced as expansion franchises, you can guarantee that within months, there will be expansion franchises in the minor league level also announced, a corresponding total of 8 teams. This is good news for 8 smaller cities, probably across the United States or North America, if MLB eventually expands. How do they get to those cities? Is there really a bargaining process? Is there a bidding process? I think a large part of that relies on where are the actual MLB cities. They will want their AAA team to be relatively close, not on the other side of the country. The lower levels, it may not matter as much. Maybe going back into some minor league towns where there still are stadiums or there's existing infrastructure. You remember that Major League Baseball consolidated minor league baseball. Right around or after the year 2000, they got rid of some teams. So there still are teams and markets that once hosted minor league baseball that could probably go back to doing that again. Great call, great conversation. On to the next one.
Hey, Brody. Dan from Chicago. Hey, my thought today was less than 10 years ago, as a Cub fan, I could watch the Cubs via my antenna. I could see every single game for free.
Right.
In the course of that 10 years, we got to the point where you have to, if you wanted to watch every single game, you have to subscribe to multiple streaming services. Now, you get the majority through Marquee, but just as recently as the 4th of July, there was one that was exclusively on Apple TV that was actually a really good game and a historic game, actually.
But
and it dawned on me that now I could probably afford those streaming services. I don't. But if I was in my 20s and I had very little money, I probably wouldn't subscribe to any of them. And as a result, I'd probably cease to be a baseball fan. And I get that there's a revenue stream, a new revenue stream for baseball that they hadn't seen before.
Right.
But I worry about what it does for the future of the sport. Because I just don't see young people being able to afford all those streaming services to follow a team. Interested to hear what your thoughts are. Thanks.
Dan, great call, great conversation. You've got the history and the background on all of this, and you've seen it evolve or maybe devolve from the viewing experience. I think what you're pointing out is that exposure is important, right? Like a revenue stream is critical to a team, and that's what they're going to want. They are a business after all, but exposure for teams does remain critical to a certain degree. Some teams, to your point, it's not just the Cubs, but a lot of bigger market teams, they require 7 to 8 different subscriptions if you wanted to watch every single game. Now, I do realize that how many people are not watching all 162 is probably a majority. There's not everybody that's watching all 162. But if you did want to watch that 4th of July game that was exclusive to Apple TV, which, by the way, is no longer a thing anymore on Apple TV, and if you're out of the system, you're locked out of the ecosystem. You don't have that subscription, you can't watch. I will say on the flip side, and as much as we talk about all the different services and subscriptions and the way that MLB has segmented a lot of its teams' games across multiple different services and platforms, I will say this, the general ability to watch, like a game anywhere on your phone, anywhere on your device, take it with you. I mean, you're probably old enough to remember the day and the time back in the day where you had to be at home to watch the game. And you had to watch it, to your point, over the air free on the antenna or on a cable system. But being able to bring the game with you on the subway train, at the airport, on vacation, that's such a game changer, right? So as much as we talk about, like streaming and the subscriptions, and a lot of that part is tough, and we'll get to that more of that in just a second, the ability to bring these games with you and watch anywhere versus just being at home in your living room, that's a huge boost and a benefit to the consumer. Making things, though, too difficult or too expensive to watch is counterproductive, right? Like, you have to make money off this. You have to have revenue streams. It's a big way that baseball even exists and does as well as it does. You do need that. But you also have to figure out a way to make exposure happen. And again, too difficult or too expensive are the two big barriers for a lot of these Major League Baseball teams. And so this is why MLB wants a unified streaming service. They want to cut down on the 20 different places. They'd rather make it more like 3 total. But at what cost, right? Like, what will MLB charge you if you want to watch all the Cubs games or all the NL Central games or all the National League games? However you want to subscribe, they can do that. They can rechange the blackout rules. Will they? And what will they charge if they put it all under one streaming umbrella? I think the simplification here, to your point, is probably what we're all after. Simplification in terms of fewer places to watch, simplification of what to understand about a subscription, what it might cost, and just making it easy and convenient to watch Major League Baseball. Great call, great topic. Next one.
Hi, Brody. This is Mark from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I've got a question about how MLB coaches deal with discipline issues with their players. If a player misses a sign or ignores a sign from a coach, how does the manager react? Case in point, on Sunday, August 10th, when the A's were playing the Orioles, Lawrence Butler blew past a stop sign when rounding third base and ran home when he was dead to rights at the plate. Oops. He should have been out by 2 or 3 steps. But the catcher bobbled the ball, Butler slid in safe, and scored the winning run. Dallas Braden's commentary on the play was something to the effect of, "Good thing the highway patrol wasn't here because Law Dog just ran right through that stop sign." What do you suppose happened in the dugout or in the clubhouse after that game? Would Butler get a team fine or a stern talking to or kudos for scoring the winning run? I'm just curious. Thanks, Brody.
Hey, Mark, that's a great thing to call in about. Again, a great topic to discuss and get to here. And your impersonation of Dallas Braden, was that approved? Do I need to check with Dallas to make sure that we should run that? I feel like you were doing Dallas's voice and persona there. But I understand what you're saying there about the situation, which, I'll be honest, I didn't watch a single A's game this year. I didn't even know that play happened, but I can understand what happened based on the way you described it. So discipline at the, let's just say, professional level, but also Major League Baseball players, if they make a mistake, do they pay for it? Are there consequences of doing something wrong on the field? No, this is not like high school baseball. You're not getting benched. You're not getting fined for making a play or a mistake, something that happened in a game that was a split-second decision and you made the wrong decision. Negligence versus human mistakes are two different things here. Negligence in that I've purposely not cared about this, or I didn't show up to practice, or I was late for a meeting, versus a human mistake like I made an error, or I wasn't looking at the stop sign and it's too late. Now I've got to bust through it. And again, I don't know what happened on this specific play, but you pay as a team. You pay and you need your professionals in the lineup. And if they make a mistake, I hate to say it, but unless it was negligent and you're trying to prove a point and you're willing to take the sacrifice of sitting them out, like the competition here is so fierce. If that player is one of your main players, they're staying in there. It's hard to bench a player at the major league level if they've done something that is not the best performance on the field. That's just the truth. And if it's a veteran, like Lawrence Butler, not at that veteran standpoint yet. He's been around long enough. He's not a rookie anymore. But if it's a veteran who ran the stop sign, sometimes they've earned the ability to trust their instincts, right? Like the veteran thought, okay, I think I can make it. I know I'm getting this, but I see what's going on here. I've done this before. I want to help the team. I'm going to override that decision. Like the players are on the field. They're the ones that play the game. So if it's a veteran, there's probably even a little bit more leniency. Managers, coaches, they're still going to have the conversation with the player, but no fines are usually involved. There might be some kangaroo court once in a while if it's a funny enough thing for the rest of the team to bring up. But I will say this, more of the discipline stuff in baseball of why player X is out of the lineup today, or there's something you don't hear about, it's because there are off-field issues. Like I said, missing a meeting or not showing up for something or not being part of a team routine or activity, more so than mistakes on the field. Again, mistakes on the field, everybody feels bad about. Everybody tries to prevent them, but it's more about discipline for things that happen off the field versus anything that happens on the field. All right, next voicemail.
Hey, Brody, this is Jay calling from Boulder, Colorado. I grew up in the 80s in Columbus, Ohio. As a huge A's fan, I love the Bash brothers. Canseco and McGuire were absolutely incredible. I was fortunate enough to have my dad take me to Game 1 of the 1990 World Series in Cincinnati on my 10th birthday. It was one of my favorite childhood memories, one of my favorite baseball memories, and I'd love to hear some of yours. Favorite memory about baseball, maybe going to an MLB game in your childhood, and then as a professional now, do you have any standout memories that were really meaningful? Thank you so much for your content. Love you doing great work. Keep it up.
Hey, Jay, I appreciate that. And Boulder, Colorado, great place to be and live. Visit there often. So appreciate you checking in and for offering me the opportunity to talk about this. And you're right, it is weird for me because like most sports fans only live it from the personal perspective all their lives. And I've had this other professional side, which sometimes like almost not wipes out the personal side, but the professional side maybe makes me forget about the personal side or lose track of it, lose touch of it. And I often have to remind myself that even though this is the business and the industry that I work in, like here's everybody else and how they're viewing it, how they're seeing it. So I never really want to lose touch with the personal side of like sports coverage or meaningful sports memories. Yeah, the A's, when you were saying the 90 World Series, well, the A's of 88, 89, and 90, they meant a lot to me. Those teams that got to the World Series and lost to the Dodgers in 88, swept the Giants in 89, and then got beat handily by the Reds in 1990. And that's a series that I think everybody looks back and regrets from the Oakland side. They should have won back-to-back. So those A's teams of those years and how big they were and how they were the center stage of baseball, and it wasn't the Yankees or Dodgers or any of the big city teams. It was the Oakland A's who were the most interesting and most talented team in baseball. I would also say that the Run TMC era of the Golden State Warriors, very short-lived. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin, and the Warriors for what they are now. In the Steph Curry era with Draymond and Clay for those years, and even Kevin Durant when he was on the team. Andre Iguodala was a huge part of initial success. People will remember the Warriors of my lifetime for the current or teams of the last decade or so. I was in on the Warriors way before any of that was a thing. And when this was harder times and you didn't land on a generational talent like Steph Curry, but that team was good. They ran the fast break quite a bit. Great passing. Chris Mullin was a great shooter. They were very foundationally strong as a team. And again, didn't last very long, but I have great memories of watching them in the 90s. My exposure to the San Jose Sharks, now they were they started playing their first games in 1991 at a place called the Cow Palace for 2 seasons. That's on the peninsula across the bay. I didn't get to go to a Sharks game until 1993, but that was their first year in San Jose at the San Jose Arena, turned Compaq Center, turned HP Pavilion, turned SAP Center as we know it now, same building. But I got to go there in the very first year of its existence. They made the playoffs in that 93-94 season. They beat the Red Wings in a playoff series. So my exposure to the Sharks, I will value that forever because, look, I grew up here in Northern California. It's not a traditional hockey market. It's only been around for 35 years at the NHL level. And I know before that there were the California Golden Seals and the Oakland Seals. But to the large degree, hockey hasn't fully existed like it has now in the past 35 years with the Sharks. So I'm so fortunate to now have learned the sport, to have watched a franchise like for all of its existence throughout my life. That's been a meaningful memory. And I could do a whole video on 100 different Sharks experiences I've had in games and players and personal situations and professional situations, stuff that I will remember forever. But I'll just say that my exposure to a hockey team, I'm so lucky that they came around. That's probably the best way to put it. Personally, those things aside, I want to say now professionally, covering the 2012 Oakland A's, that team, that season, that year, and what did they do? They got to the playoffs and lost in a series against the Tigers, but they weren't even a 500 team right around the All-Star break. They turned it on. They acquired some players. They patched it together. They were not supposed to be good. They just got rid. They did one of their unravelings of the offseason before, the whole Moneyball thing, got rid of all their competitive players. They went and hit the reset button, probably when they should not have. And in 2012, they were one of the most exciting teams in the second half. They made the playoffs. There were all these things surrounding the team that also made them exciting. Just one of the best seasons ever, honestly. So I could elaborate more on that later. The other thing I want to add here from a professional standpoint is just not really a moment, but it's more of a thing that's happened over the years. Just being around these professional athletes and observing and admiring their perseverance. That is such a quality and a trait that I don't think enough sports fans understand about all the athletes that make it to the very highest of levels. So much competition coming up, growing up. They've had to be a certain way. They've had to deal with what it's like to fail, what it's like to have success, what it's like to continue having success. You don't see these athletes showing up early to practice, late night after a game, traveling. It's 2 a.m. and you're landing in Arizona or Dallas or wherever your next road city is. Fans don't see all of that stuff. I have seen that stuff. So it's the behind the scenes perseverance that I think has helped me in my own life and in the things that I want to approach and tackle and try and get after. It's just perseverance at that level is amazing. And I wish more people got that opportunity. All right, next call.
Hi, Brody. My name is James from Middleborough, Massachusetts, and my question for you is, what are your thoughts on vlog channels here on YouTube? I personally like them. I think they're entertaining just because I like to see other people's lives and what goes on in their lives. But I don't know about you. I don't know if your kids even watch vlog channels or whatever, or if you even like it. So that's my question for you. Have a great rest of your day, Brody. Bye.
Vlog channels. I thought that was something from maybe like 10 years ago. You know what? My son doesn't watch a whole lot of that. If there's one shout out I think I want to give, it's probably to Mark Rober. His videos are like really good for all ages. And my son does enjoy a good Mark Rober video, especially those squirrel videos he was making a couple years ago. But in terms, like I said, of vlog channels, I feel like that was more of a thing 8 to 10 years ago here on YouTube. Look, it's not that I'm disinterested in somebody else's personal life. It's just that if I have a finite amount of time, and to answer the question, which is a good question, I'd rather be enlightened with somebody's intelligent perspectives rather than them ordering a burrito at Chipotle. You know, like I think that for a while we used to be interested in, oh, let's see what their life is like. Now it's like I would rather hear from somebody with some conversation or some provoking information that like makes me think or makes me learn something or helps me understand something. So I do think that I have shifted what I watch. And you know what? I used to watch some vlogs. I used to watch a Casey Neistat vlog and see what his life was like. Now I'm less inclined to do that, more inclined to watch a long-form podcast or a podcast that's on video here on YouTube. That has become, it seems like, the most popular format. Long-form conversation where you can see everybody and also they look and sound really good on a podcast. I think it's the overwhelming thing, though, of whether it's a vlog channel or a podcast, it's the power of personality here on YouTube channels that makes them meaningful and tremendous. Television has gotten away from that. Television, doesn't want to be the show about somebody's personality, or they try and neutralize somebody's personality. If you're a sports presenter, it's not about the presenter, it's about the action. Well, but you kind of want to feel connected to the presenter. And that's the same reason people tune into YouTube channels. They like the presentation. They like the presenter. So whether it's, again, a vlog or a podcast here on YouTube, personality is so important. All right, next voicemail.
Hey, Brody, this is Jude calling in from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And I have a question about the overtime loss rule in the NHL. So if a team loses in overtime, they get an extra, I call it a loser point. And I'm actually really concerned about this because the Montreal Canadiens slipped into the playoffs with only 40 wins, mind you, in an 82-game regular season. So they lost most of their games that they played. Whereas the Columbus Blue Jackets, they did the exact same thing. However, they didn't make the playoffs. This doesn't exactly seem fair to me. What are your thoughts on this? Thanks.
Yeah, Jude, that's a great one. The 3-point night in the NHL. How should we handle this moving forward? Because I do feel like at the end of the season, and there are some teams that some seasons just have a lot of overtime losses, and all of a sudden their win total isn't high, but man, they were in 16 OTL games, and now that's 16 additional points, and that boosts them up and puts them in a spot in the standings where maybe they don't deserve to be. Your point, hey, if you're not a 40-win team, how are you getting into the playoffs? But it obviously can happen. My thoughts on the overtime loss and the way that we handle points in the NHL is that anything after 60 minutes in the first place is just not the same as the game. Like, all of this is a little bit of a show, right? 3-on-3, it's meant to promote scoring and get a goal to end the game and to win the game. But 3-on-3 is nothing like 5-on-5 hockey. The puck possession, the taking it all the way out of your zone to the other side of the red line, all that stuff, like, it never happens 5-on-5. It's not the same thing as the hockey game we just witnessed that ended tied after 60 minutes. And certainly the shootout is a skills competition. And I'm not saying that this is like a circus act. I'm not saying that this is something crazy. It still is hockey. 3-on-3 is hockey. A shootout, it's more like penalty shot after penalty shot. It's all foundational, but it's not the same as 5-on-5. So I've always found it just a little bit crazy that we still award the same amount of points to the winner of a traditional game as we do a game that ends in this overtime format, either 3-on-3 or the shootout. And the losing team getting past 60 also gets a point. So the spread and the difference between those two teams is just 1 point. Actually, both ways, right? So how can we make this more understandable, more digestible? How can we make the spread a little bit different? How can we make the incentive to win at the end a little bit more and give the losing side just something in overtime, but not give them only one fewer point? Could we make regulation wins worth 3 points in the NHL? Now, yes, that does change what the standings will look like at the end of the year, and we're going to see 140-point teams, I suppose, 120-point teams, certainly. So that's going to change the point structure and valuation at the end. You would also get, for an OT shootout or win, not 3 points, right? So I said before, how do we give that winning team the full points when they didn't really win a traditional way? Give them 2 points. And give the losing team 1 point. That way the separation is not that different, but the winning team doesn't get it all, and the losing team gets something out of it, but they don't get the 3 points and the reward and the value of trying to win that game in regulation. I think this is the way to go. This is the way to do it. I know a lot of people that also feel the same way about this. I don't know if it's universally favorable across, the hockey world and coaches and players and broadcasters and scouts and GMs. I don't know. But I think this would be an easy and fair way to do it. You still get something for an OT loss, but there is just that greater separation. Like, regulation wins still mean a lot more. They still matter. And now it's 3 points every single night, right? 0 points if you lose in regulation, 3 points if you win, 2 points for the shootout or OT win, and just 1 point for the shootout or OT loss. All right. I can't believe it. We just got through 17 voicemails. And if you can't tell, Mike, my voice is fighting through it. More than an hour and 10 minutes here of answering voicemails, but I really do appreciate it. Again, this number open to you anytime. Call with anything you want to say, and hopefully, if it's really good, I get to use it. If I can't use it, I'm sorry, I won't, but I'll listen to it, and sometimes there's just going to be this middle ground, and maybe I'll make another long voicemail video like this again soon. All right, until next time, take care. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you next time.